Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 06 June 2016. The first article is related to the growing strategic convergence between India and United States of America. Now, both the countries being democracies and having respect for plurality, they have arose. The relationship is growing. From the era of Clinton, followed by George Bush, and then the present Obama era, we have seen the relationships growing further and further. So in this context, what are the central themes to this convergence? In the last one decade, the high visits, or else high-level visits, have increased between these two countries. Now, if you take the present Prime Minister Modi, in the last 2 years, he has visited United States at least 4 times. And every time, he had discussions with President Obama. And in this case, there were times for decades, there were no exchanges between India and United States. Now the frequency has clearly increased. President Obama also has visited India as a guest on Republic Day parade. And there was a Delhi Declaration of Friendship was signed, and also a joint strategic vision for Asia Pacific and Indian Ocean region was signed. Now, bilateral issues were the major dominant theme till date. For the first time in the Delhi Declaration, India's role in Asia Pacific is being discussed. It means India's relationship with US has increased much beyond the bilateral aspect to a wider regional aspects. And second is defense cooperation. When Pranab Mukherjee, he was the defense minister in 2005, India-USA new framework defense relationship has been established. Now, last year, 2015, when Defense Secretary has visited India, both these countries have updated this framework. So, it means again for 10 years it is extended. Now, more than buyer-seller relationships, one-to-one basis agreement, we have an automatic route with regard to the defense trade. And after this civil nuclear cooperation agreement, this was signed during the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh era. Now, the point we need to note over here is, it is not the nuclear cooperation agreement that is signed. India for the first time able to bend the international rules to serve its national interest. India has got IAS waiver, NSG waiver and IAEA approval. So the additional protocol, India is the country where its nuclear reactors are divided into civil and military, and the military nuclear reactors, they do not come under the ambit of IAES supervision. So India is the only country which was made exempted from all these things. So that's why the United States cooperation, United States weight behind this is clearly visible. If you see Raja Mohan article last week in Indian Express, what he said is, during the George Bush era, he wanted to see India as a counterweight to growing China. For that he wants to strategically strengthen India. So, and also he had the bigger plans to create a democratic axis against China. Now after that, trade. In the trade, more there are irritants rather than things. But however, in spite of this, the trade has reached around $67 billion by 2014. It was from 5.6 billion in 1990 to 67 billion in 2014 itself is a very big change. Now coming to the points of divergence. Now one thing with regard to the trade relations, US still has objections with regard to the tariff barriers India has. And at WTO, these are on 2 groups. And the recent new issues which the United States want to put forward, India was opposed to it. And India want the Doha development agenda to be finished. And the Singapore issues, also there is a rift between these 2 countries. And after that, with regard to the West Asian interventions, India wanted to have a very peaceful settlement. And India never supported the outside intervention into these countries. And then, with regard to the peace dialogue in Afghanistan, India says that there shall not be any difference between good terrorist and a bad terrorist. But however, America wanted to go forward with the dialogue with the help of the Pakistan. Now finally, recently there is an F-16 issue which shows the US-Pakistan defense cooperation, and this is another issue where both the countries are not very happy about each other. But however, with any country, convergence and strategic autonomy, these two are important. So India never shall compromise its strategic autonomy to reach to convergence. So we shall have the right to differ and right to converge where we think it is fit. Now coming to wetlands. This is related to the recent wetlands conservation and management rules. Now if you see, these rules are replacing the 2010 rules. And with regard to environmental issues, when there was decentralization and the states were given more authority to manage the forests, wetlands anywhere, it has led to the loss or destruction of these particular natural resources. And the second thing is, whenever economic benefit and environmental benefit of these are considered or weighed together, now we always saw them from economic benefit perspective rather than ecological perspective. Now, the present Wetlands Conservation and Management Rules 2016, they also talk about the same. So in this case, a fine balance is necessary between our economic use and also ecological preservation. Now in this case, what are the rules talk about? Now, previously we had Central Wetlands Regulatory Authority. Now it has been done away with. In the place, the states were given authority to determine what constitutes the wetlands and how to utilize the wetlands. So obviously, this might lead to over-exploitation, that is what is the concern expressed. Now, to recognize a wetland, what the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands says is, there shall be an ecological criteria too. But however, in the existing draft rules, no ecological criteria are necessary to recognize a lake or something as a wetland. Now, in the new rules, there was a section previously on what are the harmful activities that may damage the wetlands. But this entire section is removed with regard to the latest rules. So from this, we can say, so the present rules, they are giving again economics over the ecology. Now coming to Muhammad Ali, he has passed away recently, and there is no much for our prelims or else mains in this issue. But remember that he also fought the racial America. And then coming to mayhem in Mathura, so organized groups are growing. So it means these are extremely ideological groups, and the preparedness of our police is exposed. So in these circumstances, modernization of the police force and also training with regard to the mob management, all these are the critical aspects which are missing in this incident. Now coming to Amaravati and added to that Guazo. So you know that when Prime Minister Modi visited, after that Chief Ministers of Maharashtra, Gujarat, all these, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, all these people also made visits to China. So one thing in the diplomacy growing is the Chief Ministers, they are more engaging at the diplomatic level. So there are sub-regional, that is provincial connectivity is growing, and it is a new dimension of Indian diplomacy. In this case, the Guazo province, which is part of the Stilwell Road, which connected India and China during the Second World War, it was revived by this Guazo International Corporation. Now, the new capital of Andhra Pradesh, that is Amaravati, and this Guazo, these things together, they are coming forward and to develop the provincial to provincial ties. Now coming to the China against air defense zone, Kerry warns China. Now what is an air defense zone? So there is no international treaty which defines an air defense zone. It is over land or sea, on which a country likes to monitor the movement of a civilian aircraft. So that is what is called air defense zone. So it means, literally, it is trying to say that I also have an authority on this particular space. So it was in the news previously with regard to Senkaku Islands in East China Sea. The Senkaku Islands are a conflict between China and Japan. So then China has declared the sky over these islands as under air defense zone. Now Mr. Kerry, he warned China as it has declared the South China Sea as air defense zone. And the second thing is, he also made a visit to Mongolia. Mongolia is a landlocked country between China and Russia. So in this case, Mongolia want to have a third friend. So 60% of the Mongolian trade is dominated by China, and the natural resources of Mongolia are getting exported to China. So in this case, as Mongolia is looking outside and the Kerry's visit to this place takes the significance, he also praised the democracy over there. Now coming to airports, you know that central government has announced regional connectivity scheme. Under this, the central government is going to provide for necessary viable gap funding for the development of the new airports. So what the central government said is, the state governments has to pursue the airlines to start the operation in various airstrips, various secondary towns. So the state governments, if they can persuade the airlines and get them on board, the center will provide for the necessary financial assistance on a priority basis to develop the airstrips in that particular state. This is what is said. Now coming to Swiss. Now you all know that automation is increasing industry, and more human beings, they are becoming irrelevant with regard to manufacturing or high-end works. So in this case, so as more robotics enter into manufacturing, unemployment is bound to rise. In Switzerland, Finland and all these countries, a movement started that is called guaranteed basic income. So in this guaranteed basic income, in this concept, now the countries are seeing a bigger thing. I mean, so only the rich countries are effort to do this. In Switzerland, when it was put for referendum, people rejected to it as government argued that it will be impossible to implement as it will be a huge cost on the exchequer. And coming to India-Qatar relationship. So you know that the Qatar has huge reserves, or it has a sovereign wealth fund. And Qatar's crown prince also has visited India recently. In exchange to this, Prime Minister has visited Qatar, and various MOUs are signed. One is against terrorism. So both the countries are going to cooperate and they are going to exchange, if necessary, the terrorists. And second thing is an MOU on customs. Third, they want to grow their relationship beyond the trade and towards a strategic partnership. That is what has been spoken about. So along with this, the sovereign fund of the Qatar will invest in infrastructure in India. So these are various things between Amir and Prime Minister Modi. The issues discussed are. So this is about today's newspaper, and thank you very much. All the best. Yes, because of the workload, I was unable to do it in the morning, and from tomorrow I will deliver it to you on time. Thank you very much. All the best.